So it's welcome to the Author's Hour. Hopefully you're here for a reading and not for some other meeting that's in there. Okay. My name is Fred Serm, and I represent the Friends of the Chautauqua Writers Center. We are a volunteer organization whose mission is to promote writing and writers on the institution grounds, and we hope even beyond that, by both supporting and supplementing the activities of the Chautauqua Writers Center. We sponsor several events every week. On Sundays at 5 o'clock in the Prose Room on the second floor of this building, writers and listeners 18 years old and above, and I see most of you follow on it, are invited to participate in an open mic session. You get about 5 minutes to read. On Fridays at 1:15 in the garden room on the first floor of this building, we offer what we call an informal critique. Writers are invited to bring in 10 copies of one page of their prose or poetry for feedback guided by a published writer. This Friday, it'll be guided by John Brantingham, who also teaches an official course here, so he's very well qualified. And on Tuesdays, which is today, we present the Author's Hour, which is a reading series by writers, what we call Chautauqua writers, people who have been to Chautauqua. Many of them have taken workshops at the Writers Center. I'll tell you a little bit about our special events after our first author. We will, I believe, have time for a short Q&A after both authors have read, so keep in mind any questions you might have. And I know that Alissa will be selling her books, and Estelle will be directing you to how to obtain her books. Estelle is our first reader. She's a retired psychotherapist and part-time university instructor who wrote nonfiction for her profession, published in textbooks and journal articles, and also for her many lectures and workshops. She has shifted to writing fiction and hosting classes on the novel and short story in retirement, where she now lives in Naples, Florida. She'll be reading from Masters of Betrayal, a complex psychological mystery. That's the latest of her 3 novels, Masters of Betrayal, Sally's Dreams, and Trapped, all available on Amazon. Estelle is currently editing her short stories for a hoped-for collection in 2025. Estelle Rauch, please come forward.
Thank you so much. I've noticed that I need the microphone lowered, and normally I'm not used to speaking with a microphone. So I don't plan to read for my novel. I like to read privately. I am more comfortable speaking. I want to start out by just saying that I became aware many years ago that writers of fiction often wrote even very creatively and brilliantly, and I'm talking about famous writers like Philip Roth, others, and about quality and fame. They wrote repeatedly in imaginative ways about their own central dynamic issue, whatever that will be. If it would be abuse, it would be neglect, it would be abandonment, whatever their central issue from their background appears in the novel. A famous Vietnamese writer writes about never quite fitting in, about the parents feeling isolated and alone. So I'll share something about me and what my central issue is. I call it lies and something along those lines. Secrets and lies. And that came about from my parents having to manage a behavior from my father. And my becoming aware of it from the age of 8. and being on the alert for this, and people I knew even when I was a kid, and I'm certainly an adolescent, and certainly when I was on the lookout for a husband. But my husband was the most honest human being who ever lived on the face of the earth. Okay, so let me jump now to speak about my latest novel, which you have over, you can see it over there. And its central characters are a husband and wife who seem to have everything. He's a surgeon. He is famous, in fact. He performed faceless for the theatrical and even Hollywood community. He's often interviewed on television. And his wife, who has she's running a small boutique design firm in Manhattan. Now, where would I put the characters? I thought I'm a New York City lady, born and bred. You know, they start out in Manhattan. And they seem to be fine together. And this is another thing about me as an author. I propel the reader quickly into trouble, what's happening. I don't, I'm terrible at describing the trees and the fauna and the flowers and all of that. This is not for me. From my background, and also what interests me, the people and their interaction and how they deal with kinds of issues that have come up in their lives. Well, right away, page 1, you learn that for this lady, the female character, what comes up is trouble in her career. Not that she did anything, but they discovered that there's been financial fraud perpetrated on the company. Next time you hear from her, she hosts a beautiful buyers group. People come from all over the world, and the United States, Canada, etc. Canada, I know, is all over the world, but I'm New York standard. Anyway, this girl thought Toronto, which we visited every summer, was a part of New York. I forgive you if anyway. But it all, so we know right away that there's trouble. The next thing she wonders about is why her husband, who loves going to some of these buyers events, he finds the miles very attractive and, it's a lot of fun. He doesn't show up and he doesn't respond to calls. So we, immediately, right away, there's something going on. And he calls her after 10:30 at night and and she meets him and learns the second thing, which is he is in very, very serious trouble. And how this couple manages their relationship and handles the secrets and lies, and the fact that as much as they have acted like they had it all together, right? That each of them has hidden something important from the other. Now, Jay, the husband, has particularly hidden what he can't tolerate about himself, which, by the way, as a psychotherapist working with hundreds and hundreds of couples, that's basically what is more likely for almost any of us. We don't hide, I'm not a bank thief, I can't hide that I'm not 5'8". I'd love to do that. If I don't see you ever again, and we have a conversation, you ask me how tall I am, that's a lie I can embrace. I'm 5'8". You'll never meet me, and I can laugh at that. Anyway, this couple, we see them on the journey. Now they have to take separate journeys because the amount of trouble they have caused and the amount of secrecy and lies that have been perpetrated by them, it's beyond what they can handle as a couple. And you will, of course, meet not only what happens on the journey, but the important people they reach out to, some of whom really become tremendous support people in their lives, and other people who actually undermine their attempt to negotiate And we see how one of them really does attempt to negotiate, whereas the other is on the run. And you might guess which one is which, even from my talking to you. And the last thing I'm going to say, because I'm cognizant of the time limit, how am I doing? Doing good. Everybody who knows me for 5 minutes knows I love dogs, right? Some of you have met Maya. I have a 2.5-year-old Havanese now, but I've had dogs all my life. When I was a child, when I was an adult, I love them. Well, a dog plays a very important part in this book. Every single thing I've written, I always have a dog. This dog is named Olivia. My previous dog, who I adored, and had to be put to sleep at 17 because she had very advanced heart failure. She has a rebirth in this novel. A picture of her is on the back of the book. If any of you looked at it, it's a real picture of a real Olivia. And she is probably one of the heroines in the book. So be on the alert, because if you ever want to read anything by me, you will find a dog in it somewhere, and the dog is frequently very crucial. Now, what do these two people need? Jay and both of them need, husband and wife, need someone to love them, someone to know them, including the things they don't want people to know, and still love them. And I think that's universally true for all of us. Unless, do we have some perfect people in the show? Oh, yeah? I'm so relieved. We have a perfect person. Well, I'm not a perfect person, and that was never going to happen. But we need somebody to know our imperfections and still love and respect us and encourage us to be our better selves. All right? So in this story, each of these people actually has such a purpose. In one case, it actually works. But the trauma and the difficulties that each of them faces because of what they have created, follows them deeply into the novel and threatens their survival. So I would hope you would be intrigued enough about this book to be willing to get in touch with Amazon and buy a copy. Also, you can reach out, tell me what you think. I'm at creativewriter@gmail.com, and I put my cards there if anybody is interested. I have 2 other novels. Since I'm here, I have just 1 more minute. They are very different, but obviously they have a lot of complex characters, So don't count always on a happy ending. Sometimes there are happy endings, but you can't count on it during the middle of the book. Thank you so much for your attention. I can sit here.
I got it, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Estelle. You did a good job of intriguing us. I wanted to get to know these characters better. Is it okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I just want to briefly mention the annual events that the Friends of the Chautauqua Writers Center present. And it is getting to be that time of the year where lots of the events are in the past. As we're over halfway done, it was great to say, with the season at Chautauqua. So back in July 3rd, on July 3rd, we had a reception with the friends on this very porch with light refreshment and lively conversation, including dogs. Yeah. Back on July 14th, we had a book fair. Chautauqua authors got to sell their books if you're an author and didn't know about this. please think about participating next year, and it's usually around that mid-July time. The annual writing contest, they just closed. The deadline was this past Sunday, but keep that in mind for next year. I think in this digital age, we have a little less visibility. There used to be flyers posted everywhere and applications in the library and here and on the former equivalent of the Octagon. But now you have to go online. I'll give you that website where you can find out more about the writing contest for future reference and their events. But it's at chq.org/FCWC. One thing you still have a limited time to participate in. Robert Pinsky was here about 20 years ago and started the tradition of the favorite poem project. At the time when people, as the name would indicate, get to read their favorite poem, provided it's a short poem. It can't be, Dante's Divine Comedy or something. And briefly, in 2 or 3 sentences, explain why that poem means so much to you. We are still accepting applications. I think the 11th hour is noon on Saturday. And Monday is when that event takes place. So if you have a favorite poem that you'd love to share with people gathered in the Hall of Philosophy, please enter that. With the writing contest on August 11th, we will have the award ceremony. So if you're around, come to the Hall of Philosophy once again at 2:30. And I'll repeat the website one last time, chq.org/FCWC for Friends of the Chautauqua Writers Center. Now to our next reader, our next author. The southern tier of upstate New York is special to Alissa Sammarco, a 3rd-generation Chautauquan. You make me feel like a rookie here. Okay. She spent her summers at Chautauqua Institution and attended college at University of Rochester, where she earned an interesting combination of BA in economics and a minor in creative writing. I guess your writing is economical then. Okay. Okay. Alissa is an attorney in Cincinnati, Ohio. The beauty of this place brings her back again and again. Her poetry has appeared in print and online journals, including Sheila Nagig, Black Moon Magazine, Chain 7, Quiet Diamonds, Main Street Rag, Evening Street Review, Voices in Italian Americana, or BIA, Ohio Bards, But There Was Fire in the Distance, and Hags on Fire. Her debut poetry book, Beyond the Dawn, was released in 2023. And she's on a tear right now. She's published 2 other books since then, if I have the timeline correctly. I see them now, and most recently, I just got it in the mail last week, Moon Landing Day. And you will find more poetry and news at www.alissa, A-L-I-S-S-A, yes, that's 2 S's, okay, Sammarco, SAMMARCO.com. Alissa.
Okay. I did have a request from the folks on the picnic bench, rather, if there's any way to increase the volume. I don't know if there is or not.
Yeah, it's doing better now.
It's doing better? Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for coming this afternoon. My name's Alissa Sammarco. And I want to thank some people for inviting me. I did this last year, and I was so excited about it. I came back, and they let me. I first want to say thank you, Fred Zerm. This is a wonderful event, and it's so nice to be outdoors in this informal atmosphere. I think it's what poetry should be. And I also want to send out a thanks to Kwame Alexander, who's the director, and to Safine Hunt, who makes things go. And without her, I'm sure a lot of things wouldn't go for today as well. I do have several books out. I want to talk first very briefly about I See Them Now. This is my second poetry book. Many of the poems in this book were inspired by my childhood, my Chautauqua. And I'm going to read a few of them for you. And you'll get this as we go forward, but I do write a lot about family. I write a lot about relationships. And much like Estelle, I write a lot about things that aren't necessarily seen. You won't read them, but you'll know them. You'll recognize them in the poem. So I'm going to start with just some Chautauqua poems. And as an introduction, I don't know who spent years as a child here, but when I was young, let's say between the ages of 10 and 12, we would hang out at the park, just kind of hang out with a group of kids. And we weren't doing anything wrong. But let me tell you, once the clock struck 8 o'clock, and y'all know that's when the amp starts, right? If we made a peep, we were very bad. So keep that in mind as I read this. When boys and girls dream of one another, I remember all those years ago when I was happy and you were too. We spent our summers gingling, flirting with the camp counselor, all of us named the same, Alice, Lisa, Elise. We spent our days in bathing suits, pulling lake grass from our toes, squealing when it brushed our bellies as we swam, laying on docks in sun-kissed bodies, Alice, Lisa, Elise. We ran everywhere, too excited to walk, too impatient to wait one more second to meet up at the rock. Just a rock, its memorial plaque, long unread. We made noise until the old ladies shushed us from windows, floral nightgowns waving us home. We scattered into the lamplight, boys and girls dreaming of one another. Thank you. Thank you. This next poem was inspired by some of my walks through the grounds in the wintertime. I always was amazed the way all these houses looked once they'd been wrapped. It's almost like they were shrink wrapped to protect them. Russian palaces. I visited my summer place, walking through the painted ladies, their porches bound tight to protect them from winter that transforms them into Russian palaces, buried in antiquity under drifts of snow. I remember boys who pulled my braids and girls giggling our heads together, some lost forever to our Father above. And those who returned to this place to raise their children here, where time is wrapped in canvas shrouds like these houses. Thank you. So, and I'm going to share one more Chautauqua poem, and then I'm going to move to my latest book, Moon Landing Day, which has a whole different feel to it. Where childhood lives, I can still find that place where childhood lives. Each night I ran with you under the Milky Way, the moon, the stars, out on the field where we played ball by day, the fresh cut grass stinging our noses, and we lay face up toward the sky, holding hands and giggling, telling secrets to each other about boys, too young to be lovers. At the witching hour, between 2 and 3, we were free. But now the years smell sour like an old woman's breath. And although our secrets are still kept, we do not share them, even when we visit this place where we lived so long ago. Thank you. So this is my latest book, Moon Landing Day. Actually, the pre-sales were announced on Moon Landing Day, the 50th anniversary. Just coincidence, but I love the title film. These books deal with some pretty harsh realities and were inspired. They were inspired when I got a phone call from an old friend. And I got an apology over this phone call. And we talked about 2-3 minutes and then hung the phone up. And as I hung the phone up, I realized that that call was the ninth step, that my friend had just completed the ninth step, at least with me, in making his apologies. I've known a number of people in my lifetime who have been affected by addiction, abuse, alcoholism. So this book is dedicated to them. I'll just read you the dedication very quickly. This book is dedicated to my dear ones who have won and my dear ones who have lost battles with addiction and abuse. Some of these poems were inspired by that call. It's loosely based on the 12-step program. These patterns are passed from one generation to the next and are so often unheard and unseen. For all who survive, I see you. Dearest, I am writing to keep you safe, to keep you tucked away in a place where we will not spoil. It was only an offhanded comment, but it sent me running. It was all I could do to hold myself together, you seemingly adoring, finding only what was wrong. All those things I cannot keep track of, leaving a light on, the shades open, a dish in the sink. They sit between us. But you, I never forgot. You live in the back of my mind, sharing meals, pouring coffee, kissing goodnight. And now we've come to this place where words are dismissive, where eyes are cold, and my heart tucked away for safety. I thought we had learned our lesson of how to behave, drunk or sober, and yet still we walk old paths in old shoes, tread bare, sliding downhill. Let us grip each other and find our footing again. For what has happened, they cannot be amended. Love, A. Maybe I promised I'd be better. Maybe I promised you something I couldn't deliver as I drove over roads I knew so well, all the way to the river. Maple leaves and Indian cigars hung over the road like a bad haircut, sticking in my eyes. I couldn't see the sky, and I swerved too fast through those curves until the Kellogg on-ramp, where we parked boats at marinas and bottles of bourbon at Annie's joint. Maybe I promised you I'd be better than a coffee cup filled with booze and fake tattoos at 2 a.m., last call, closing down the place, waiting for someone to walk me to my car, waiting for someone to drive me home. Take my keys, take me. Thank you. And some of these poems are inspired by Bible verses, even though they're loosely based on the 12-step program. The power of the dog. Deliver me from the sword, my soul from the power of the dog. Psalm 22:20. Ice cubes clink under paper umbrellas, while ocean swallows my regret, popping them into her mouth, one after another, like bar nuts. The dog barks in his low, fast phrases, warding off strangers. Trained to sniff out sickness, he tracks that sour meat in the morning, a cancer crowding my brain. I know the smell of him too, wet and full of earth. The taste of salt on my lips. I have no breathy sighs in the end, and I cry out, forsaken. Oh God, have you left me at the mercy of my enemies? While the dog sits on his haunches, teeth bared, licking his lips and filling his belly with his own vomit. Thank you. So a little different feel to this book, I think. I have some poems which are a little more lyrical, and I'd like to read for you the title poem called Moon Landing Day. Tides move back and forth 7 miles above the Mariana Trench, where fish with luminescent spines and giant red worms sip sulfur from volcanic vents. The moon, gray and white, circles like a ball on a string. Man cannot breathe in space, nor under 1,000 tons of water. And on that day, when man stood on the moon, breathing in weightless vanity, all of the air and water and weird creatures rose to the surface and exploded. Thank you. And I'm going to read just one more poem from this book, and then I'm going to move to something a little more less dark. And we've all had that time when we were thinking about contacting somebody and not quite contacting somebody. I wanted to call you from LaGuardia. My plane landed early at LaGuardia, and I thought of that time when you and your father picked me up, driving through the city and over the bridge. You told me later that people just don't drive there. Your father explained about the Port Authority and the trains at Grand Central Station, and I wanted to hold your hand in the back seat of his Buick. As I watched the men on the tarmac, I wanted to call you just to let you know that I can take a bus, a subway, that I've seen the clock at Grand Central Station, that I feel you so close, I can almost touch you, yet as far away as our fingertips in the back seat of your father's sedan. Thank you. And I just wanted to read a couple of, this is a very small book, about 6 poems in it. And I bring it with me because it shares some of my mother's artwork. I did a show with her artwork and my poetry paired together last summer. And there are a couple of poems that kind of go along with this theme. What it feels like when your heart won't stop beating. There's a silence between thuds, maybe, but all of it still hurts. All of it still hurts. And when you stop feeling, and when you're still standing here, like, what happened anyway? Thank you. And I always like to bring us back home again. So I'm going to read out of I See Them Now. And this is where we should all end up again. The unicorn and the whale. It's a happy poem, really. The unicorn and the whale. What happy bedfellows, the unicorn and the whale, living one on land and the other in the sea. Magic sprouted wings. They took to the air as cyclones spin, lifting them high, feathers bound by wax and gum, melting, melting, kissed by the sun. Their hearts beat faster until they could not hold their breath, exhaling the wind's death and falling, like all lovers fall, piece by piece, back to earth. And that's where we are now. Thank you very much. Thank you, Fred. This is wonderful. You know, and also here we have electronic availability if you need that. And Estelle, thank you for sharing your book. Thank you. I can't wait. I can't wait to order. Thank you.
We do have time for some Q&A, but first, let's give a round of applause to both of our readers. If you have questions for either or both of our authors about whatever process is always available.
Well, I enjoyed Estelle's, the way she presented the book and about herself and told of some of her secrets, and makes the book interesting and wanting to look at it.
Okay.
I
I think it's sort of a comment about knowing the personal context makes you
Yeah.
more interested in reading. Okay,
Yeah.
great, good. And of course, with Alyssa's poems, the Chautauqua connection in the one volume, so the grass between the does and the lake, all that.
Yeah, I like personal stories as well. Yeah.
Okay. Personal stories.
Yeah.
Any other questions or observations? Let me close with just a few announcements about upcoming events. This Thursday at 3:30 in the Hall of Philosophy, Eric Gansworth will be discussing his CLSE selected book, Apple Skin to the Core. On Friday at 12:15, we have what is called a community reading. Students from the prose and the poetry workshops that are being taught this week, usually between 4 and 6 students get to read their work. Plus, the instructors have a few words to say as well. So it's a good way to get a sense of what goes on in the workshop. Just a reminder about our sister art theater, that Fabulation by Lynn Doddich is playing through the weekend. And word of mouth is that it's great. I get to see it on Saturday. Next week, on the Author's Hour at this time, Tim Love will be presenting his nonfiction book, Discovering Truth, which is about how to sort out truth from lies on the internet. Something that's more and more these days. And Paul Simonelli has written 2 nonfiction biographies of baseball figures, Roy Sievers and Joe Cambria. So please join us next week, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. If anybody's interested, I have some cards here. You're welcome to them.